wonder how I got here. What did I do to get here? Somehow I made.
So the Bible talks about being equally yoked. Now, would you say that you guys were equally yoked in terms of where you were headed, what you wanted, in terms of the ability to support yourself, to support each other, and in your faith? Who wants to go first?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I would say yes. The reason why is because with Dakari, he a Christian man. And that's a very important thing for me. I grew up in the church. My grandparents, they're pastors. My aunts, my mom, they were on the choir. Like, my whole life was based upon faith and all that stuff. So it was very important that I had a man that believed in God. And that was like my number one requirement for my relationships. So.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's strong. The faith in her household, they don't play. They don't play about Jesus, all right? So it was never a question about that. So I was like, okay, in the same. It's especially at the time that we met, I was leaning on God hard at that time for financial and family reasons, things like that. So yeah, my faith was at an all-time high.
So would you say that's a good thing for you to actually have to go through something, and then God has to guide you out of it or get you out of it, that helps build your faith and get you ready for a relationship with another person?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say so because well, if I'm speaking for myself, but I would argue for, most guys, you can't lead your relationship, you can't lead your family or or your household without having faith, having good faith. So for me, going through things, and I have been through other trials and tribulations as well, but for that to happen at the time that it did, and then for me to meet Tyra at the time that I did, it was almost serendipitous. It was very divine timing of how all of those events transpired. So it's definitely important to have something that reaffirms your faith or strengthens it or anything to that extent before you go into a serious relationship. Because especially for someone like me, I didn't really have father figures, so I'm leaning on my faith to guide me in the right steps to be a good man for Tyra. So yeah, everything for me starts with my faith.
So one other question. Nowadays, I would like to say that I wish everybody could take their route, but now we have this thing with blended families.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be more the norm than the abnorm. The family. There's nothing wrong with blended families, because if you look at the church itself is a blended family, because you got the Jews who are descendants through Abraham, then you got Christians who are adapted into the body of Christ. So the church itself is a blended family. What would you say if a guy was to approach a young lady who already has kids?
Well, I experienced that myself. So I grew up in a single parent household, but then my mom eventually got married, and both she and the guy who became my stepfather, they both had their own kids. So we moved in together. It was his two sons, and then me and my sister, and then they had a child together. And we were all in the same 2-bedroom apartment together. So
2-bedroom apartment.
2-bedroom apartment.
That's tight.
Yeah. So the boys had a room, parents with the newborn, and then me and my sister were in the living room. So the blended family experience for us was definitely a challenge for a multitude of reasons. But I'm no stranger to it. But I will say, again, if the two individuals want it to work, it will work.
So one question: should the parents get to know the other kids first before they make that move?
Yeah, absolutely. And my mom was extremely protective of me and my sister. So we didn't even meet him until I think they were already dating for a few months before she even invited him over to meet us. Okay. And then it was still another. Well, now it was some circumstantial matters that kind of expedited them moving in together. But I think had that not happened, we probably wouldn't even had got to that point of moving in together for probably another year past when it actually did happen. But again, financial reasons kind of sped that up.
Okay.
So she was very cautious about just bringing guys around. Like she wanted to find her husband. She wanted to marry, but she knew that while she was just dating, she didn't want to just rush to have a male presence around who wasn't a good presence to have around. So again, I think blended families work as long as the people are intentional and mindful of that.
But should that take some upfront planning before they not just get married and say, okay, hey guys, guess what? Here's your new stepdad or here's your new stepmom. Don't do it that way.
No. there has to be a level of trust and comfort. And honestly, the kids have to approve, especially me and my sister, we were both teenagers at the time. So she knew that if we didn't approve, she wouldn't keep talking to him. So it was,
I can kind of see that because I have two sons, and if something was to happen to me and my wife tried to hook up with somebody else, she'd have a hard time.
yeah.
and when they were home, my oldest son was like, "Who is you?"
Yeah. And my sister was worse than me. I thought I was tough. My sister, nobody got approval from her. So it can work, but it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Like you said, if they're mindful that the kids involved have feelings and are going to have opinions about it and be emotional about it, as long as they make that the priority and make sure that the kids feel safe and at least understood in the situation, it can work.
Okay. So let's get back to you two. So now you guys, it sounded like COVID was a good thing. Now, I'll be frank with you because we do counseling. A lot of people who were married, COVID was the end of their marriage. And it was the end of their marriage because they were together too long and too much. They couldn't escape each other, right? And it was kind of funny because I know some friends who are like that, right? They got to hang out with the boys and then they come home be with the wife for a little while, but then she gets on their nerves and he has to leave again, hang out with his boys and vice versa. Whereas with me and my wife, we were more like best friends. Now, how important is that to you two that you are each other's best friend? Or are you not each other's best friend? I can't assume that. I would assume that.
I think we have to be best friends in order to have a successful relationship, because we needed to have somewhat of a friendship, even though we did speed up with the timeline. However, we cared about each other so deeply. The intimacy aspect, will come later, but we try to get to know each other as, people, as individuals. So I think we need to be best friends.
What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting because on paper, the timeline definitely looks quick. However, again, it's one of those things where it just felt so organic. Excuse me. It felt so organic and so right that even though it was very fast from first date to, hey, let's be exclusive, it just felt natural. And I think we were fortunate that we were early on in our relationship when COVID happened, because who knows how it could have went if we were, deeper into the relationship. And what I mean by that is we were already still in the learning phase. And so for COVID,
when you say learning phase, what do you mean? Because people listening, I'm assuming that a learning phase is one of the things that you would recommend they do, learn each other. So what do you mean by learning phase?
We were still getting to know each other's tendencies, bad habits, triggers, traumas, all of those things that make us who we are. We were still in that phase of the relationship of truly understanding the person. So it's, for example, is why she would say like, oh, we should never go to sleep angry. Where does that come from? Why do you feel like that? What from your childhood causes that? Or excuse me, even certain words, like she called me ungrateful one time, and for me that's a trigger, right? Because it stems from things with my mother. But she didn't know that, right? Like, because a lot of people will say something like that in the moment, like they're upset. But she's like, okay, why did you get so mad? Like, why did you get that? Why did I get that extreme reaction?
So those are the things you think you have to work through.
Yeah, you
before
need to
you
learn
marry.
that. Yeah, you need to learn that and figure that out.
So that's part of the baggage you would bring with you
Correct.
into a relationship.
Yeah. And so for COVID, with COVID pretty much slowing down time, that's all we did was explore each other. So we didn't have the typical distractions of the common dating scene where you could go watch a movie. And although a movie might be fun, if you really think about it, that's 2 to 3 hours where you're not even talking to that person because you're both watching the screen. Or you go to a basketball game or a football game, you're not necessarily learning about that person during those activities. They're fun. Oh man, I took her to the game. It was, we had a great time. But you didn't really learn anything more about that person during those things. So for us, we were literally in the house talking. We might watch some Netflix movies and stuff like that, but for the most part, we're just in the house talking. Like,
So you got to know each other.
yeah.
And then what you're telling me that that each person had traumas in their life. Nobody's life is perfect.
Yeah.
So what it did was it gave you a chance to work out and work through those issues prior to getting married.
Yep.
Now I know in marriage counseling, a lot of times by the time we meet some people, they didn't know that they had their spouse had those traumas, and now they're like at each other's throat, or they can't stand it because now they're trying to work out those issues when they should have worked them out before they said I do.
Yeah.
And that's why when he was talking about superficial and, it's so important to get to know the people that you're talking to and just learning each other later on in the relationship is going to be more successful. And then, of course, you put God in it. Right. It's a whole nother ball game. But that's also why we don't believe in small talk. We don't. We're really big on, okay, we have to have substance in our conversations. And, here and there, okay, how are you? But we really try to get to know each other, also get to know the things that the other person likes, dislikes. You do that early on, so then you can figure out if you really want to be with the person or not.
So did you guys talk about things like before you got married, like do I want to have kids? How many kids?
And that's a perfect segue because I think what happens is, again, COVID was an anomaly, but I think in a normal dating setting, I think what happens is we tend to get caught up in the pleasant feelings, and that's not a bad thing. Like I said, like if you genuinely enjoy spending time with that person, that's not a bad thing. But the work part is you still have to actually do the homework and study them at the same time. Like we can have a picnic date every day of the week, or we can go watch a movie every Saturday, but I still need to make sure that I'm learning her, at some point.
You worried, so in other words, you're worried about the day-to-day living when you're not going out and when you're not doing.
So all of those questions matter, right? So it's, do you actually want to be married one day? Do you want to move out of the state one day? Do you want to stay? How long do you plan to stay at this job? All of those things matter because it's indicative of where they are currently, mentally, spiritually, but also where they see themselves headed. And even the number of kids, right? That could, like, if she said, "Oh, I want 10," and I'm like, "Well, I only think I want 1." Like that matters.
Yeah, I guess it would.
That matters. Or even if even pets, it's like, "Oh, I want a house full of cats," and I'm like, "Well, I hate cats. So what do we do now?"
What do you do now? That's right. So those are the little things that you need to work out prior to saying "I do."
Yeah.
Or prior to even saying, "Will you marry me?"
Yeah,
right?
Because I think marriage gets romanticized, and everyone loves the idea of marriage, but you can't fast forward through what it takes to get there. It's almost like watching your favorite athlete. Like, it's exciting watching your favorite athlete score a ton of points or do the superhuman, whatever. Like if it's Steph Curry, it's like, man, like he's the best shooter of all time, but it's like he is spending hundreds of hours in the gym practicing.
So what about his wife and his kids? Is he an absentee dad? Right. So, because he's out there making a living. Now I have a question for each one of you, and I hope I don't make you guys mad at each other. Okay. Should a woman be responsible for bringing something to the marriage?
Absolutely.
And should a man be responsible for bringing something to the man?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I got another question for you. Should a man try to build his dreams on his fiance's or his wife's money?
So that would take a lot of communication. And the reason I say that is,
If you had to say, give me a yes or a no on that, what would you say?
just general yes or no.
Simple yes or no.
For me, it would be a no,
Okay.
just because of how like I view the preferred relationship dynamic for me would be I would prefer for my wife to live an effortless life.
Okay.
Like even right now, like we joke about it all the time. Like even in our current household, we're like the opposite of the fun, like typical stereotypes. Like I actually clean. I'm not messy.
Yeah, he's
You know,
right.
stuff like that where it's like, oh, or even like with the wedding plan, they were all like, oh, Tyra, you got a plan stuff? And they're like, no, the car already figured it out. So it's just like, but I don't want her to really have to lift a finger. Like that's
Well, see, my
ideal.
wife would love those attributes in me, but I don't have them. She'll tell you I'm a slob.
So yeah, so the question will always be no for me, but that's just because I prefer my wife to just be able to be free and feel safe to explore whatever she wants to do. Like work is optional, or
Now that
any
brings me
type
to
of-
that's a really good one, because now I want to ask you a real good
Okay.
question. Should a wife support her husband financially to help him reach his goals? I'm not saying he's a what do we call him again, a scrub, where he ain't working, but he's out there working hard and he's trying to reach a goal, and you can help him reach the goal by helping him financially. Should she or should she not do it?
I support it. That, and it could be just me individually, how I am. I always want people to be able to achieve what they want to do. Like, he's a very determined guy. So if he ever said like, hey, can we figure out this financial situation so that I can open a clinic? We're going to figure it out so that it can happen. And that's just me as a person. I like to allow people to do the things that they want to do. But that's just me as an individual. However, do women, I would say do it, because it's only going to help us both financially.
Okay. So in other words,
She not giving herself credit again, because we already have lived this actual scenario, because one of my goals was that I wanted to pay for the wedding
okay.
without having to take out any financing or borrow any money.
Okay.
And so she covered the whole rent for, what was it, a 5-month stretch maybe, or something like that?
So would it be safe to say that you two would be something similar to me and my wife, where we pull all our money together because we figured, well, this is Team Payant, and what's best for Team Payant?
Yeah, we're doing that currently.
You couldn't do
We
that?
actually just created a plan
Yeah,
just for
mapped out what's
2025.
our total debts. We mapped out what's our, excess money after, because the thing that makes it easy for us is that we get paid weekly at our company. And so it's very easy to do financial planning when you have that weekly structure. So we mapped out total debt that we want to get paid off for this year. We know what our total combined household income is monthly. We know what our total monthly overhead is for, non-negotiable expenses. So yeah, it's
So you guys really truly believe in financial planning?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Some people don't,
Yes.
right? So and I say that, and I don't say that lightly, because me and my wife, we both getting close to retirement, so we met with the financial advisor. He said he thought we did pretty good with where we're at, and we are ahead of the curve, right? Because they said that the majority of people my age and they're about to retire will usually have at most $200,000 in the bank for retirement, and they said that $200,000 is not enough for people to retire on, but they said the majority of people do. And they said really those who do have a savings, that's like 1%, 2%. And then he said that normally the average amount a person has in the bank who retires at my age is around $85,000. So usually what happens is they're out working another job after retirement, or one of the two will, right? And so basically he was saying that we did pretty good, but to get there, we had to plan and pull all our resources together, right? And it required total trust. I had to trust that, okay, all this money I'm putting in her name, she ain't running away, or she ain't spending it, right? And now, is that where you guys are? I mean, how do you do that?
I would say so. I mean, we do like to spend our money on individual stuff too, but
Well, how do you decide? Well, all right, you want a car. You don't want a car. How is that decided?
Well, we got a better example, but it was a quick agreement though. It wasn't a car, but so we both like sneakers and tennis shoes,
Okay.
and so it's coming out this year, and I sent her the picture. She's like, "Oh, I like those. I want to get those," and I was like, "Good, because I do too." So, so we just gonna get 2 pairs of them. You know? But it's more like even like with the debts thing, right? So. And this is new to us because prior to getting married, it was still like separate accounts or whatever, or at least like she was paying like her individual expenses under her name and me doing the same. But we had a conversation a little bit before Christmas, maybe like a month, so closer to Thanksgiving probably. But we had a conversation nonetheless, and I was just like, "Hey, I was like, okay, new marriage perk unlocked. Let's just attack our debts together." So it's
So
like
you pulled your debts together.
yeah, it's like we're a unit now. So
Okay.
the way that I see it is, if she had, so like for example, I was fortunate enough to not have student loans.
Okay.
I had full scholarship for
Okay.
college. She has student loans, and that's one of her biggest financial burdens. Are the ones that aren't being forgiven or delayed or whatever it is. And so we just had a conversation. I was like, hey, well, if that's pulling you down, it's pulling us down. So as long as that's a burden that you have, is
In other words, you guys are Team Wilson.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yes.
it's like that burden is no longer just your burden. Like that's
That's
my
mine
burden
too.
So it's like, okay, what can I do to expedite that and get those cleared out so that you don't have to worry about those no more. So it's just that was one of the biggest switches of actually joining as one under God, was like everything is just about the unit now.
Now, I call marriage a LLC, meaning that you. Well, number one, you take what LLC is. It really is an LLC, right?
it's a business.
It's a business. But I also say there's three other terms I use for it. You have to like the person, love the person, and be committed to the person. When did you realize that you like this person, you love this person, and you can be committed to this person? Did it come naturally, or is that something that you had to work at? I mean, how did you know this person, look at him and say, well, okay, I can deal with him, but I don't know. Well, when did you finally realize, or what is it that made you realize that he fit that LLC? And what made you realize that she had, that she would live by that LLC? Or did you just figure, I'll take a chance and, maybe not? I mean, how did that come about? How did you finally realize that, okay, she likes me, she loves me, and she's committed to me? And when did you say, you realize that he likes me, he loves me, he's committed to me? What was it?
I'm not gonna lie, it's my mom. My mom is my rock, and when she spoke about Dakari, when she met him, she literally pulled me aside and was like, I knew. She was like, I know that that's the guy for you. And when she declared that to me, I became more intentional with it. And it's really important that, like I said, my mom, she gives the approval just because, I know what she wanted for me, and she can see if I have blinders, she'll be able to see the other side of that. And so that's kind of when I knew.
And it knew
Yeah.
that he was an LLC?
Yeah.
She not listen. Her my relationship is something else.
It's tight, huh?
She's not exaggerating. So I'm glad I got the approval from her mom. She not playing.
But not everybody is that fortunate where the moms are on board with it. A lot of times, families can be hindrance, right? But now, what made you realize that she was an LLC?
I would say it had to be during COVID. I lost a close friend during COVID. He was a classmate, frat brother. He died from COVID, and her mom just held me as I cried for probably like an hour straight, just in the house. It was just
And emotional support.
Yeah, it was utter silence aside from me sobbing, and they were there, and I think it was them. It was never like it just felt right. Like the way that they just held me up, it just felt real. It wasn't like, oh, this is awkward. Like we don't even really know them like that, because we were only dating like for a couple months at this point when that happened. So that was a pivotal moment. I ran into some troubles with my license, and the short of it is they ended up taking my car that night, and Tyra came pick me up, and
we got it the next day.
Yeah, we were figuring out. And even her mom jumped in, like, because she was like, hey, you know, like she offered. They were like, hey, you know, like if you need money, I was like, no, don't worry about the money. I'm gonna figure all the money out. But like, her mom was there taking us to the place, get the car back, like kind of, you know, escort.
So would you